Well, hello, and welcome to the 46th episode of Circus History Live. I'm Bruce Hawley, president of the Circus Historical Society. Circus History Live is produced monthly by the CHS. Recordings of previous programs are available on the CHS YouTube channel, which also includes recordings of over 70 circus history spotlights. Our guest for tonight's program is Bill Powell, Chair and CEO of the Circus Ring of Fame in Sarasota, Florida. And now, without further ado, here's the host of Circus History Live, CHS Vice President Chris Berry. Chris?
Thank you, Bruce. I'm very excited about tonight's program. We're going to be talking to Bill Powell, who has a long family history in circus and also himself being a circus manager. But more importantly, Bill and I talk about the fact that what Cooperstown is to baseball, what Cleveland is to rock and roll, Sarasota really is to the circus. And that makes it all the more important that the Circus Ring of Fame be there, a place where many dozens of circus greats appear each year at St. Armand's Circle, and then also an induction ceremony that's held each February. So, Bill, welcome to Circus History Live. Let's kind of get started here just a little bit by talking about you, because you are definitely somebody who has been around it, with it, for it. Tell us about your family experience, both your mother and father, your family even before that.
Well, first off, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. And since there's so many folks that are interested in circus history, I'm going to have to turn down my BS meter a little bit because you guys know the truth, right? So, if looking at it historically, my grandfather and grandmother, George and Vetus Ingesser was their name. They started out I think in the 1918 with a little repertory show. There were these things that came out of Minnesota and Wisconsin. They were called Ole shows, OLE was the name of them, Ole shows. And they were little repertory theater based on Swedish comedies. And it literally was a tent with a little theatrical stage, and they traveled around the Midwest and the Mountain West, and they put on these shows, and they're like 3-act plays. And my grandfather met my grandmother in Salt Lake City, Utah, where she was from, and he was a trick piano player, and they fell in love, and and got married, and he swept her off her feet and took her back to Minnesota, and they started their own show. And then one little repertory theater turned into 4 traveling repertory theaters. He employed about half the town of St. Peter, Minnesota. And then one day, I guess somebody had a deal on an elephant I guess an elephant was available for a reasonable price. So he bought the elephant. And then someone said, well, George, what are you going to do? I said, I guess I got to start a circus because I have an elephant now. So talk about the tail wagging the dog. He bought this elephant named Ruth, and they decided, okay, well, we'll start a circus now. And they named that first circus Zelmar, Zellmar. And I said, well, why did you name it Zelmar, George? And he says, because Gallmar Brothers was a big show, I guess, in the Midwest. He said, and Zelmar sounds like Gallmar, so I can kind of glom onto their name. So maybe he was borrowing part of the brand. I don't know what it was, but at the end of the day, that show transitioned into something called Shell Brothers Circus, and that show was active almost up to 1940. So, and then the war came along. Obviously, the Depression happened and wiped everybody out. My family went from being millionaires in the 20s to basically being destitute. They climbed back after the war, and my mother went on the Cole Brothers Circus, and she got some notoriety driving the 16-horse hitch on the Cole Brothers show, which, Chris, you're very aware of because you sold me that poster.
They 16 sheet posters for Gigi.
Yeah, she married my father, who was also kind of a wire walking star on that show, and 3 years
Bill
later,
Powell.
I came along.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the history. There's a kind of a whole section there after I was born. My mother she was transitioning into this Alaskan Husky Act. And the significance of the Huskies were that by the time she got those, she had to buy these dogs and get them from God knows where. They all got transported into Dallas, Texas, and they were puppies, and then they had to grow a little bit, and she had to train them and whatever. But by the time that she got the act ready to go, Alaska was being considered as the 49th state of the Union, and there was a lot of banter about Alaska. It's like everything was like Alaska, Alaska, and it became quite popular in the news. So here's this beautiful blonde lady with this Alaskan Malamute, sled dog act, and she got a lot of bookings. She had like 2 agents, and all I knew is my grandfather and grandmother raised me for the most part because my mother and father were always out on the road, and I would say circus was 20 to 25% of what they did. The big part was Christmas shows, sports shows, special events, expositions, and that went along for a long time. Um, so, and then my thing is, what, after I got out of high school, my mother, she sort of kicked me out the door. She said, I don't want you in the circus. I said, why is that? I wanted to be an elephant trainer because I know how to train elephants, right? She said, no, I don't want you to do that. She says, go off to college. You got some brains, and you can do better that way. So I went to school and did well, and then sort of meandered around the corporate world uh, before I joined up with Ringling, and then it was from that it was there was just the red show and the blue show at that time, and that company was nothing like it is today. I mean, today it's this fabulous, huge, big enterprise, but back then it was just a group of really interesting people to be around that were highly motivated. That that we went out and promoted the circus, and we were the original advanced professionals in that word. And then 45 years later, here I am. So.
And I want to talk maybe a little later on about your career with Ringling because it's fascinating. But right now, I want to talk about your pet project of today, which is the
Okay.
Circus Ring of Fame. And if you have ever been down to St. Armand's Circle, you've probably had the opportunity to see a group of amazing plaques that are down there, which talk about some of the greats in the circus world, not only here in the United States, but around the world. Let's talk a little bit about the history of the Ring of Fame, Bill, and how it all came about.
Well, the Circus Ring of Fame was started in 1985. The original, let's put it this way, the original thought process of should we do a Ring of Fame started back in 1985. And there was a guy named Larry Marthaler who was the president of the Sarasota Convention and Visitors Bureau. And it was actually housed within the CVB. And they did it because they felt that, okay, we can do this annual ceremony and it'll attract visitors to Sarasota because Sarasota is identified with the circus, and let's try and do this thing, and then it'll be good for the winter. I guess that now they got minor league baseball, but back then this was a consideration, and it was actually paid for by the CVB. So the first inductees started happening in 1987. So it took them 2 years to get it together. I guess getting approval from the city for the plaques and being out there on St. Armand's, and then they started putting the plaques down. And the Circus Ring of Fame existed within the CVB for until 1994 and 95, and then for whatever reason, I don't know why the change was made, but it became a standalone 501c3 nonprofit. At that point in time, Larry was still, either he had retired or he left or whatever, and then a gentleman named Floyd Kruger, he was a good citizen of Sarasota. He elected to take it on himself, and he managed it up until 2016, 2017. He passed away, and then Brian Lidicote, as you know, took it over for about 2 years. and then Brian moved to Tennessee. At that point in time, I'd been on the board since 2015. I was much like you, Chris. I'd participate and pay attention and do what I was asked to do. But it became pretty apparent in 2017 that the organization, there was two things that were happening. It was aging out as far as the people who were running things, and that's not I don't want to say that in a bad way because everybody gets old. But the fact is the demographics were not conducive to a going concern, shall we say. And when Brian left, he and I had a couple, pretty good talks. Brian's a bright guy.
Yes, he was.
He was a really, really earnest, wonderful guy. And I said, where are you going? He said, Lebanon, Tennessee. And I said, Lebanon? I never heard of that. He says, yeah, it's up on. He said, it's a nice place. He said, there's no cell phone service. I said, okay, so you're going to run the Circus Ring of Fame from top of a mountain in Lebanon, Tennessee. How's that going to work out? And he thought about it. He called me back about 2 weeks later. He says, maybe we really should talk. He says, I don't think it's going to work out. So at that point in time, I agreed to step in the role. A lot of the stuff that he was doing, and Brian kind of took care of the plaques and some of the backstage stuff. And then we had to have a meeting of the minds, shall we say, of the existing board. And my good friend Joan Galvin, who used to be one of the counsels for the Ringling organization, handled all of our animal issues and government affairs. She and I and Debbie Walk sat down, and we came up with I don't want to call it the Bill of Rights, but our document. Okay. And that document was the leading thing of how we would conduct business. And it was extremely thorough, and it locked a lot of things down. And then we sold it to the existing board and said, yeah, we're going to change, but we're going to have some really good things that will come out of this. And that started it. And that took us about, oh, by the way, we had less than $50. Okay, let's just start with that well-known fact. They didn't have enough to pay the mailbox the post office box. So a few of us, what eventually became the advanced professionals, Kenny Walker, I think, is here with us tonight, and Steve Cook and John Samosky and whatever. We all just said, well, let's dig into our pocket and give this thing a bankroll, and it's going to be our initial contribution to see if we can survive. And if we can't do this in a year, then shame on us. And that was really the beginning of what I call the phase, whatever, the new reality of the Circus Ring of Fame. And once we got rolling, we found that the most important thing is you select in a very good way your nominees and that they be voted on. And you widen your voting base, and you will get good inductees. And when you get good inductees, it's easier to find fundraising for your overall organization.
And I want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
And we are going to also open this up to questions for Bill a little later on in the presentation. So if you do have any questions about how people are selected and so forth, we'll be able to do that. But one of the things that I really would like to talk about now, too, is the fact that, the Ring of Fame, if you've been down to St. Armand's Circle, you know that those barrier islands, there's John Ringling himself right there at St. Armand's Circle. John Ringling owned those islands at one point, Lido Key, Longboat Key, all of those items and all of those areas. And he was the guy who actually came up with this whole idea of building a circle down there on Lido, St. Armand's Circle. So when you decided that or it wasn't really you, but when they decided back in the day that they were going to have that first group of inductees go in, and they decided they were going to be doing it there, it seemed like a really good location at the time. But you have really taken it to the next level. For those of you who have actually been to one of those the old induction ceremonies, here's a photograph from the one in 2017. You can see it was a great outdoor event with an outdoor stage. but it wasn't really a show. And you have now taken it to the next level on that too. So how did that all come about? Because this happened under your watch, where it moved from being, in the park basically to now being under the big top that Circus Sarasota owns.
Well, thank you. And that's a very pertinent question, Chris. In 2020, I think it was right before COVID, right? Actually, it was the year of COVID. And we were inducting Guy Laliberté and a few other pretty prominent people. And Brian was kind of stepping out of it a little bit. It was the first time we were able to get our, the current team's head around it and how would we do it. So we decided to reskin the trailer, which was out there. I had special graphics made, and we made it look really nice. I mean, but we made a trailer that, you could pull up in the middle of a farmer's cow pasture, look about as good as it could look. Okay. And
plus, you had a show. I mean, we had the King Charles Troupe.
Yeah, we had the King Charles Troupe,
and they came out and performed.
Yeah, I mean, we put some merchandise out there, and we did a lot of, I think, really good things. I would say it's sort of like, a baby step. But what we found is because of the city's restrictions, we couldn't get in there, access the site before 7 a.m., and then we had to be out by like 4 o'clock. And that was a hard and fast rule. So the night before, a deluge of rain came and hit Sarasota. Okay. And it basically turned it into a mud pit. St. Armand's is a bowl, as we all know, right? But that, even if it rains a little bit, the actual central lawn is, it is designated as a water retention area. Okay. So by the engineering staff. So that turned it into kind of a mucky mess. And then we're out there at 7 o'clock in the morning trying to move trucks around and get the stage up. And of course there's ruts, and it looks like Kelly Miller pulling off the lot back in 1953, right? And so we finally get everything set up, and okay, we're all sweating. And oh, by the way, at about 11 a.m., the skies turned bright and muggy, and all the humidity came up out of the earth, and it turned into a sweat bath. So it was a sauna and a mud bath. Okay. And so the people show up, and we do the presentation or the ceremony. And I'm looking, everybody has moved the chairs off into underneath the trees because it's so hot and sweaty. So there's a reason I'm saying this. Is after we had that, the board came, we had our meeting about a week later, and I had the board basically, I ain't going to say they were livid with me or anything like that, but they were all, accomplished people who'd done things in their life, and they all came out and put up chairs and did everything that they needed to do, but they emphatically said, we cannot do this again. If we're going to do this, this has to be different. And then COVID happened. And when COVID happened, we had to take a year off. And we took a year off. We put that, and by the way, we had Zoom all of a sudden. So we were able to get board members from a little bit of everywhere. And we're able to get on these Zoom meetings and start planning and resource it and whatever. And that thing that happened in 2022 inside the Circus Sarasota tent is a result of the fact that we had what I would say, it was a good-looking disaster, but it was a disaster in our minds operationally. And then we took it indoors and we turned it around. And now it's a very nice award show that befits the artistry of the circus arts.
And this photo that you're looking at here, if you haven't been down there, this shows, well, it's actually Lee Stevens in front of that band organ, but behind it is the Circus Sarasota tent, which obviously is used by Circus Sarasota, but also used for the Circus Ring of Fame induction ceremony, which is held each February. And, one of the things that you were talking about earlier, because I remember, I think it was 2 years ago, being down there at the Ring of Fame itself at St. Armand's and talking to one of the people who is involved with their local Chamber of Commerce. And it's really impossible now to do something there in February because the city has decided that nothing no events can go on in that circle during the tourism season, right?
Well, they've shut down a lot of things, yes, because of the
Not even an
traffic.
option.
Yeah, I mean, it's a there's a lot of things that are affecting Sarasota. I mean, forget about the fact that they had four hurricanes and just wiped everything away, but just Sarasota's getting overloved. Okay, they get a tremendous amount of people there. There's like 3.5 to 4 million people that visit Sarasota annually. Well, about 2/3 of those visitors go out to St. Armand's. It's a major hub of a place to visit. And it's because of the shopping, it's because of the restaurants. I would like to think it's because of the Circus History and the Circus Ring of Fame. And now that we have our QR codes attached to all of these bronze plaques, somebody can go out there and have a rich mobile experience.
Yeah,
And
this is a really interesting thing that came about. I think it was Nick Walenda who suggested it, right?
it was.
Originally, to put a QR code on each one of those plaques. So if you're in front of the Emmett Kelly plaque, you open the QR code, and it will tell you about Emmett Kelly, show photographs and so forth. And it's really an additional experience when you go to the Ring of Fame now. And I think that was a terrific idea that Nick had.
Yeah, it took a little doing. It was we did that a little in conjunction with reinventing the website and actually making the biographies for 150 plus of these inductees. So we just sort of added that on at the back end of it. Once we knew that we had pages for everybody and a page that got a URL, then it was a matter of creating the QR code and matching it to the URL. And then having the content that was interesting. That's why we've gone to a whole lot of video stuff like you guys are doing, Circus History Live and Spotlight. Well, we're creating that content every year at our event, and we're creating content throughout the year to put on those biographies so that when somebody goes and they see Gunther Gable Williams, you know what? They're going to see a lot of pictures of him. They're going to get a short bio, and then they can go on, I think, and see up to 2 or 3 videos. So that to me is a pretty good deal for somebody. It's a little bit more than a stroll in the park. And who is that down there? I don't know what this is. Now they know what it is.
So it has not been without challenges, though. And one of probably the most significant one happened a couple of years ago when we had back-to-back hurricanes in Sarasota. What you're seeing there on your screen on the left, that's St. Armand's Circle. And what you're seeing there on the right is it as Ernie Birch's plaque, which, as you can see, was damaged by the rising waters.
Yeah.
So what have you done to mitigate that? Because I know it's been a challenge.
Well, it was I would I would like to say we were great in our aloneness, but no, we weren't. We were get in line with 150,000 other people, places, organization that had similar problems. And I think our problems were pale by comparison to those folks that lost their homes. And we were very conscious of that. What happened was, and including myself and Mitch Sowers, another board member, Chris, Mitch lost his home completely up in St. Pete. I lost half of my house. We lost the whole grounds of a condo over in St. Pete. So, we came back and in October and saw all of this. And then after I sort of halfway got my place dried out, I drove down to St. Armand's, and Mike Fields, our restoration guy, was down there and met me there. And it was a mess. I mean, that thing of Ernie Birch's plaque was mild. So we were able to calculate very precisely the extent of the damage. And I'll tell you why. It's because we have had for about 4 or 5 years, an ongoing restoration program. So we went in, and the first year was, I'm going to say, something like 21, 23, 24. And actually, so this happened in 25, right? Yeah. So in 2024, we had gone out, and once a year we took pictures of all the plaques, We had it all out on a spreadsheet, and we did a gradation of all of them. They were in either in class A, B, or C, depending on the level of of restoration that they needed. They could either just needed to be dusted off and a clear coat paint put on them to preserve the outer layer, or they needed a little bit more extensive, but it could still be done on site, and that was a B restoration. And then the C was rip it up, take it down to Venice, sandblast it, take it down to the bare metal, and completely redo it. So we knew the state of everything, and we knew approximately when plaques would get to a point where they needed either an A, B, or a C. And the purpose that we did it originally is we never wanted things to get to C. If we could catch them in A or B, then it would be cheaper to operate. It would be better for the plaques. There was a lot of reasoning behind that. Well, when we got down there in October, I can tell you that there were plaques there. Wayne McCary, okay, who we all know. He went in 2024. His plaque looked like a plaque that had been there for 7 to 8 years.
And it was brand new.
It was brand new, and it was
Not
brand
even a
new.
year.
Yeah, that was the extent of what happened. So you asked me what we did. Well, the first thing was I said, Mike, get out here with the pressure washer. We have oxidation that's going to happen. We need to clean the salt water out of here the best we can. I said, let's get them cleaned. Let's get the water out. Let's get the stuff that's corrosive out of here. And then we'll go back and we'll figure out how we got to deal with the plaque. So he did that fairly quickly. I would say that by 1st of November, he had steam cleaned and washed the entire circle.
And if you have not been down there, the Ring of Fame is more than 150 plaques,
Yeah.
and these are large, plaques. And so I think that it's for those on this call who may not realize what has gone into the effort there. Bill, we really have to take our hat off to you because of the time and effort and money that has been spent to make sure that the Circus Ring of Fame continues to be a part of the Sarasota tradition. Speaking of traditions, this is Circus History Live that you're watching right now. This is our monthly opportunity to get together and talk about some aspect of circus history. It might be circus history of today, might be circus history of the past, but it is circus history, and we are on YouTube. We've got dozens and dozens of videos, not only Circus History Live, but also Circus History Spotlight, which are shorter little segments. And I would encourage everyone to consider joining the Circus Historical Society, circushistory.org. We have our 4 bandwagon magazines, our journal, which come out with all kinds of circus history, including contemporary and things going back to the earliest days. So again, that's my commercial for Circus Historical Society, Circus History Live. So let's get back to this year at the Circus Ring of Fame. Now, it comes up every year in February, Bill. Tell me a little bit about what we can expect to see down at Benderson Park, where you've moved under the big top that Circus Sarasota has.
I'll do that, but I want to finish the thought
Okay.
on the cleaning of these plaques and stuff.
Okay.
We pay for all that. Okay, the city gives us a space to put it. The plaques, that is their complete and only obligation to do this. Everything else is on us, and we have to raise funds to do that, along with put on the show, conduct the balloting, and do all the other things we do, create the videos. So it's not like we're part of the city. We're part of the heritage of the city, but so far, since at least I've been here, I have not received a check that said payable to the Circus Ring of Fame from the city of Sarasota. So we are completely dependent upon the generosity of people, and that's my commercial. So now you wanted to know what's happening down at Benderson Park this year, right?
Yes, coming up February the 6th.
Well, we're going to have a great show. We've kind of had 2 or 3 years to work out the kinks, and it's going to be hosted by Joseph Bauer Jr. and Chris Allison's going to help out with a little bit of comic relief here and there. We have 3 excellent Generation Next artists. And then we have, of course, our Lifetime Achievement Award winners. I was on an interview with Stage Link, the Circus Talk people, a couple of weeks ago, and what I was trying to explain to them is, well, what do we do? Well, we honor lifetime achievement. We also, and that's one bookend over here, right? And then on the opposite side, we want to shine a spotlight on these young and up and coming, really good circus artists. And then we also want to shine a spotlight on coaching because, if you don't have a good coach in your career, a good mentor in your career, then you're not going to succeed. And I think that all of us, whether, we've been in the corporate or the executive worlds or you're in the artistic world, someone's got to take you under their wing. And this year, that person that we're honoring, his name is Master Yu Li. He's originally from China. I think he was started out with the Shanghai Acrobatic Troupe, and he gravitated to the United States and was very influential in working with Cirque du Soleil and many other shows, Big Apple amongst them. Basically, resided in San Francisco and started a circus arts school. So, he's, a very, very high caliber person. And we feel it's important to have that spotlighted. Just like you have these young kids coming up, and whether they're trained by their mom and dads like Veronica Chalabayeva, or they happen to be trained in a formal circus school like others have been trained, right? The fact is if you don't have that combination, you're not going to have a future at the circus. And on the opposite end of it is that after a circus artist, okay, or it could be an executive or a family or whatever, that they spent their entire careers, establishing themselves and striving towards excellence, then they get to be honored as an inductee. And this becomes their thank you for a job well done. Thank you for contributing so much to an incredible art form. So we think that we have a very nice balance of bookends, and we plan on keeping that balance, and we may even expand on it a little bit in future years.
So this is inside the big top here. You can see the program includes a show, as you said, and then the inductees actually have the opportunity to speak, which is also very interesting. That's Nick Walida from a few years ago. But let's run through the inductees that we're going to be seeing this year. And I want you to also kind of get into how these people are chosen, because I think there's a lot of interest in that also. It's like if you somebody that you think should be in, how can we figure out how we can do them right?
Okay, well, let me tell you about the inductees, which is the big life. We call them inductees or slash, same thing, the same word is like lifetime achievement to us, right? And they're the ones that get the plaques on St. Armand's. This year's inductees are Elvin Bale, the world's greatest daredevil. Elvin was actually, he was the star of the show when I first started out with Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey. And it was him and Gunther Gable-Williams. Elvin was on one unit as the superstar daredevil aerialist, and then Gunther was on the other show. And Elvin, throughout a very prolific career, he did stuff that was, it was unbelievable. Okay, and people think of him as on the high wire or on the giant wheel and things like that. To me, the thing that was the most incredible thing that Elvin did was a diving forward heel catch.
Yes, he did.
Single trapeze, and he did it 28,000 times, and he didn't fall. Okay, and as he said to me about 3 weeks ago when we were visiting on this, he said, Bill, he says, there was quite a few times that I caught myself by one heel.
Wow.
He said, it took everything I could to get that other heel over the bar.
Wow.
He said, I thought that's what would do me in. He said, but the crazy thing is the cannon did me in. So we're going to honor him. He's he was one of the most significant stars of Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey in a great era for Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey. And not that it's a great era today, right? Because the greatest show on earth is always the greatest show on earth. But I kind of look at that as the Gunther and the Elvin era. We're also honoring the Circus Vazquez family. This is to me. A Horatio Alger story, right? Rags to riches, strive to succeed. They started out as a very small little circus in Mexico City. They had a hand-stitched tent. It was two families getting together, and they put on a few acts, and they started this little circus. And then the two brothers eventually went their separate ways, and Jose took his family into the United States. And, over a period of multiple decades, they built and they built and they observed and they learned and they got better and they got better and they got better. And now this is a formidable organization and they are highly professional.
Yes, they are.
I've had the good fortune to spend quite a bit of time with Ramon and other members of that family. I've seen their shows, and I'm going to tell you, this is the finest circuses you're going to see anywhere. They really do a good job. They are the backbone for the Big Apple Circus, as well as having the Circus Vazquez and the Flip Circus out there. And I see them doing some great things in the future. But it's like, it was an overnight success story that took 40 years in the making, right? So they're most deserving of what they do. And finally,
if you want to see the Vazquez on Circus History Live, it's on our YouTube channel. We had Ramon on within the past year, actually. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
The third person that we are honoring, to me, may be one of the most consequential individuals in the history of the modern circus globally. And his name is Franco Dragone. Franco was an Italian by way of Belgium that ended up in Montreal, and he joined a upstart Cirque du Soleil organization, and he became the creative director for the first 12 Cirque du Soleil shows. And we're talking shows like Mystère, Alegria, Cirque Reinvent, La Nuba. I mean, to me, the shows that established the Cirque du Soleil brand, as well as establishing an entirely new genre of circus, and we'll call it Cirque versus Circus. However you want to, can be debated 10 ways to the middle. But if he hadn't have done what he did, if he hadn't have brought that magical touch of being able to blend theater, performance, lighting, sound, Cirque would not have been what it eventually turned out to be. So, and then Franco left and he started his own company, and they did La Rev, and they did the Celine Dion show over at Caesars, all with elements of circus in them. And then today they've got shows stretching from Asia through Europe to they've just opened 2 shows in Saudi Arabia, and they got, I think, another one in Dubai. And the company's run by the 2 sons, Lucas being one of them. So Franco Dragone to me is one of the most significant individuals.
I think you're right, Bill. And just to kind of talk a little bit about Franco Dragone, he's not someone that here in the United States, maybe most people have never even heard of him, but the circus takes a lot of different forms. And there are those traditionalists who say that, maybe Cirque du Soleil is not a traditional circus, but again, it has evolved and it continues to evolve as it has from the very earliest days. So I think that, in my opinion, it's very appropriate that someone like Franco Dragone is being honored at the Circus Ring of Fame, just because of the fact that anytime people are talking about circus, it is a good thing. That's my feeling.
Well, I'll add to that point, Chris. And, we've had a lot of discussions about this within our board meetings at which you've taken part in, is, the Circus Ring of Fame basically takes an agnostic approach to animals or non-animals, or, we look at it from the perspective of the circus is a global art form. It should be treated and respected as a global art form. It is probably the most highly flexible art form of performance art that can either be unto itself, or it can find its way into in hundreds of different permutations. It can end up being on a rock show, or in a symphony orchestra, or on a cruise ship, or a standalone show in Vegas. It has got this unique quality that it's like the silly putty of arts that, at a very high level, okay, it can be anywhere. So we look at it and we say, is it good circus? Are the acts really great? Is what they're doing, okay, different and wonderful? And does it advance the circus arts? So we look at that, and that can be, let's just say, for instance, we had the Rickers and the Casellis that came in as inductees a few years ago, right? Probably two of the greatest animal training families in Europe, without a doubt. Without a doubt. I mean, incredible relationship with these animals, and top-notch performers. Hey, and we look at that and we say, great, we love them. They represent a really good part of circus. Franco Dragone, great, we love him. He represents a really great part of circus. Circus does not need to be in three rings and be confined to a certain set of definitions. Okay, it is an art form that our universe can enjoy in many different ways. All we ask for is excellence, so that we can find the highest of achievement in circus arts and culture and honor it.
Yeah, I think that you have done an excellent job of kind of expressing that message. You talked about Master Lu Yi. I want to go back a little bit to Willie Edelston. Willie Edelston had worked as a trapeze artist on the Ringling Circus back in the 1940s. Ring of Fame inductee himself, a very renowned coach at the Sarasota High School Sailor Circus for decades. And I think it's just terrific that Willie is being honored in this way too.
Yes, and we named the Coach of the Year award after Willie, because he was the first coach that had ever been inducted. And then after discussions with Pedro Reyes, who's head of the nominating committee, and several others, we said, the coaching thing is a good thing. We hadn't really defined this bookend concept of, Generation Next and lifetime achievement, and it was kind of, being molded. And out of the Willie Edelston induction, we should be looking for other people. There's a lot of circus schools around this world, and there's some excellent coaches out there.
Yes, there are.
And that's how that happened. I mean, if it wouldn't have been for Willie's induction, it wouldn't have got our creative juices going, and for us to say, hey, this is a good thing. We need to honor this.
Sebastian Videla. He is another one of the inductees this year. How does somebody like Sebastian get nominated? How does someone? Tell me about the selection process.
Well, there's a couple different ways to go about doing this. Okay, and certain things get handled within the nominating committee. Okay, and certain things are very formal. Like, if you wanted, anybody can nominate anybody for a Lifetime Achievement Award. Okay, as they can for any of the other. We accept feedback. We look at it just as that. Send us feedback. Give us your thoughts in the initial process. If someone says, I've got a young artist you should be looking at, we'll say, hey, send us some information on it. Or if they're saying we have somebody that's a lifetime achievement, we'll say, hey, there's an application form that here it is, fill it out, send us some information. We actually do ask for quite a bit of information these days, and after some initial pushback, we get a lot of information, because people have realized that that in order for the nominating committee to do their job, and that nominating committee, by the way, is a global committee, and it represents both contemporary and classic and European circus. We need to give them information. So The actual, you look at the calendar, what happens is from February through mid to late April, we accept applications. Okay.
Mhm.
Right after the 8th of whatever, the 8th of February, there will be a thing that goes up on the website that says, do you want to induct somebody? And then, or nominate somebody is what they say. And then you click on that and there's going to be a form that you download and then people can go to work. They got to get the information in and we'll communicate by email back and forth and we'll ask them to upload information onto a Google Drive, which we got about 6 terabytes of space up in the heavens somewhere. Uh, but basically, it's kind of organized. They upload their digital stills, their press releases, their anything and everything about this candidate. So in May, okay, we assemble that. Okay, we get together and we say, okay, and it's not a physical thing; it's really moving files around. I create a package of each of these candidates from those applications and the backup material. And then the nominating committee comes together and I give that information to the nominating committee. And basically at that point in time, Pedro kind of takes it as the chair of the nominating committee. We ask the nominating committee to review these materials. We give them, I'm going to say 3 weeks or so. And then we bring them together and we actually do a straw vote. And what we ask them to do is hey, give me your vote, just text it to me. And I take that text and I put it onto a spreadsheet and then I present it back to the group. Okay, and I say, okay, these are the candidates that was the first round. And what we're asking them to do is get about 50 down to 10 or 15. So they have, okay, and they've had 3 weeks to look at these things and to study them. So it's a little bit of it's a process. I mean, we ask them, the nominating committee, to, look, you guys are here because you're knowledgeable and you know a lot about circus arts. And we want you to use that knowledge and spend the time to do your job properly. And here's all the material you're going to need. So we get to the point where we take this vote. Sometimes they nail it on the first one. Other times they can maybe have discussions separately or whatever. And then if it needs to be, I'll bring them together and say, text me your vote for the second time. And then we get it down to 10. And that's usually in mid-July. Once I have 10, then I assemble that onto another Google online thing. And I think it's forms in this case. And then we send it out to what we call the Circus Advisory Council, which is, 2,500, 3,000 people worldwide that have registered as being part of the circus industry. Okay, it's not like you get on there and you say, I'm John Smith, and oh, by the way, I just want to vote for someone. They have to go on there and say, I'm John Smith, and I work for this organization, and what is my affiliation? What do I do in the circus? Am I an executive? Am I an artist? Whatever. So they do have to do what we'll say, declare themselves, okay, as having enough knowledge to vote.
Can a circus fan vote?
Huh?
Can a circus fan vote? Some of the
Yeah,
people
circus fans can vote. Yeah,
on this
absolutely.
call. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. A historian can vote. We just want people that we don't want spam.
Yeah.
Okay? We don't want spam. We want people to register and that we know if we have to pick up the phone or send them an email and say, hey, are you there? Then we've got that ability to do that.
Mhm.
So we give them a month to basically let the votes come in. And then at the end of August, we have the votes in. And at that point in time, now these are feedback votes. Okay, I take that voting results, I assemble it, and I give it back to the nominating committee. And I say, okay, this is how the voting shakes out. Here's your feedback. Would you have anything to say about this? Do you have, is there something here that's, a red flag or something objectionable, et cetera, et cetera? For the most part, there is none of that. I can only say that the only thing I have come across is there have been actually people that have been separated by a couple votes. Okay? And when you're taking 10 or 15 down to 4 or 3, the voting gets pretty heavy.
For sure.
And if it gets where it's like a dead tie or something like that, we're not going to rerun the whole votes. Then I kick that back to the nominating committee and say, okay, you guys choose this. Okay, this is going to have to be your choice because we need to move on to the next phase, which is the production and the show and getting people on board. And that's how it works. And it works, I think, amazingly seamlessly. And that gets
We've
us up
got
in
two more people who are going to be there. Veronica and the Corona sisters. Tell me a little bit about Veronica.
Well, Veronica is she's from the Connaught family, right? The wonderful horse riding act in it was on Ringling for two
Terrific.
decades almost. I mean, they when they first came over, and the act itself, the Mom and Dad's act. I mean, it closed the show for many years because it was so strong. Well, this is Tatiana and Connaught's daughter, and she started this little beautiful little poodle, amazing pet act, and it caught on, and then they entered her into America's Got Talent, and lo and behold, she gets into the semifinals. And then all of a sudden that leads to now she's doing NBA games and NHL games, and she's got, at a tender age of like 17, she's booked pretty solid.
And just to clarify, she is the next generation.
She is the next generation. Yeah. And you know what? She's doing really well. And this, and she's got a pretty good following on social media. And we look at that type of activity. We're looking for people that are great performers. That's got to be the first thing. Is they got to have the performance chops. But then what are they doing? What's interesting about them? What stories do they have to tell? And we're finding that a lot of this next generation of up and coming circus artists, they're extremely savvy on social media, not just because they post things, because they know how to do it and how to create an audience. There's a person out there, I can tell you, she got over 3.5 million followers, here in the United States. And then you got people like Renee Caselli over in Europe, who's got millions and millions of followers. So we look for raw talent and that sort of stuff in Gen Next. We're also looking for, are they going to be, savvy enough to market themselves and to have the complete package? And fortunately, we've got some great kids. The Corona sisters is a very good example of this.
5 generations circus family.
Yeah. and a great Instagram following, and they do a great act. But that's what Gen Next is about. It's up and coming, savvy, great performers. Have a great future. We want to encourage that. We want that to be celebrated and honored, so that other kids look at that are coming up and saying, I want to be the next Alana Spagna. I want to be the next Annalise Knock. I want to be Daniela Quiroga. She got that award. And by the way, the doors, the knocking on the doors, it's happening right now for next year. And we encourage anybody that feels that they want to put their hat in the ring for that. Fill out the application, send it in, it gets into the nominating committee, and it gets discussed. And, hopefully one of them or 2 or 3 of them will be able to have that opportunity. So that's it. That's kind of how we roll,
By the way, I misspoke earlier. I said that the Ring of Fame was going to be on Saturday the 6th. It's actually Saturday the 7th.
Saturday the 7th, yeah, 4:30 p.m.
Of February. Again, that's just coming up in a couple of weeks. If you haven't been there, and by the way, if you have a question for Bill, this is a good time to put it into the chat, and then we'll ask him those questions, because I have some, but I'm sure you do too. Also, if you have not been there, as I said, you use the Circus Sarasota tent right there in Benderson Park. This is what it looks like at the end of the performance when the confetti cannon goes off and the inductees are there. It's quite a show, Bill, that you put on.
Yeah, we're happy. We're very proud of it.
Another thing that you've done is you've created a television program which has aired on public television in Florida, right?
Yes, it has, and we're hoping to get it distributed wider as far as in the PBS world. We managed to make it happen on World Circus Day, which is great because there's more interest for circus during that weekend. And we also stream it globally through StageLink. I mean, they've got 40,000 plus people that are in the circus industry worldwide, and they're all members, and that product is available for them to view. And then we have our own YouTube channel. So I wish I could say we're better at that. But at the end of the day, we get great content, and we use that content in multiple ways. What you see inside the circus tent as far as the biographies that introduce people, that ends up on their website under their biography.
And it's a great social event
Yeah.
too. So if you happen to be in Sarasota, you're thinking about what you're going to be doing to get away from the cold weather in the north, February the 7th, it's going to be a lot of fun. Our first question for you actually comes from Elizabeth McCall, and it deals with horses. She says, what about honoring, it says Star Horse in Circle. She worked as a horse industry liaison for the Cavalia show. I know that there have been I know Starless Night, for example, the horse Starless Night is in the Ring of Fame. Other animals have been in the Ring of Fame. Talk a little bit about horses and horse equestrians who, are in it, because we don't see those horse acts quite as much anymore.
Well, it's a very excellent question, by the way, and be happy to address it. The equestrian arts really were at the origins of the circus, which you go back into, hundreds of years ago, right? I mean, it really started out with horses, and they've been prominent throughout centuries as prominent performers. And we do have Starless Night. We recognize Starless Night, and Captain Bill Heyer is part of that. There's also an incredible equestrian on the Circus Ring of Fame, John Harriott, who had the wonderful American Saddlebred American Anthem. And then, of course, Sylvia Zabini is a member of the Circus Ring of Fame, Charlie Murawski. I mean, just name them. There's many, many people that were prominent in the equestrian arts that are there. As far as honoring individuals, other than Starless Night, I can't think that there's an individual horse that's being honored. However,
but other animals, Jumbo is in there.
Yeah, Jumbo's there. It's really Jumbo and Starless Night. However, it is being discussed, and it probably is not going to happen. It won't happen this year. It'll probably happen next year. Is that we want to create an animal group and let that stand as the group of animals that have been animal partners with circus performers for multiple decades, that we allow that to exist as a group induction. And that's going to allow a little bit more flexibility in getting some incredible equestrian stars as well as other animals recognized. We were just tossing some names around, I don't know, a couple 3 weeks ago, and you look at even other equestrians that have not been honored. There was a great act from the 60s and 70s, Serenado the Wonder Horse with Adolphe Del Bosque, and I believe the daughter's name was Sarah. Just an incredible act, right? Knucklehead, the little dog from Lou Jacobs. I mean, they're out there, and they were, Nebraska the Mule from the Scots Unrideable Mule Act. The mule was the star. The people were just kind of hanging around, right? So yeah, it's there, and we're figuring an appropriate way to honor them as a group. I think it is something that we would really like to do. Once again, we're agnostic. To me, if it's great circus, it's great circus. It can be contemporary, it can be classic. We don't care. We want greatness. Dan Lyons.
So Dan Lyon, actually new member of the Circus Historical Society board, but longtime circus historian and friend of the circus. Dan Lyon asks, are there any steps that are being taken now to mitigate damage from future natural disasters? A lot of money went into the restoration of those plaques, but it could happen again. That salt water could definitely get into St. Armand's.
Good question, and there's a few things that that are being considered, and there's a few things that are being done. Okay. Um, I would say that, our hands are tied by by acts of God. At the end of the day, if it's going to happen, it's going to be a big storm. It's going to happen. Okay. What we need to concentrate on is our response. Okay. And I think I started out this particular session by saying what happened to us was mild compared to how it destroyed homes and people's lives. So we look at that and say, you know what, let's just do our thing. Let's do everything we can to get our ship in order because other people got bigger problems. Now, response time is huge. If the water goes down and we can get out there and pressure wash things, and the water's only been standing there for, let's just say, a day or so, we're in pretty good shape. Okay. Hopefully it's just one storm that does something like that versus others, multiple. 2025 was, or 2024 is just an extraordinary year. The other thing that is happening, and I think the city of Sarasota just voted like $25 million to put into stormwater mitigation and infrastructural upgrades so they can install new pumps to under a normal weather event, not a 300-year weather event like we had, but a normal weather event that they can get the water out of there, okay, much quicker. And that's this $25 million project. It's probably going to take several years to do this because they're literally going to be tearing up the streets and putting in new sewers and bigger pumps and whatever else. But the city recognizes that St. Armand's is probably the single biggest draw in tourism, and they got to take care of it. So we're going to benefit by doing that, and we follow it closely. We're very in touch with the Merchants Association out at St. Armand's. Rachel Burns, who heads that up, is a good friend of ours, and she'll be at the show this year. Always comes out and supports us. Has been great people to work with. And she keeps us pretty much in tune with everything St. Armand's. And quite honestly, she's got our back. She's one of the people out there that if something's going on, she picks up the phone and calls me and says, "Hey, did you know this?"
I want to just kind of run through a little bit about what is going to happen on February 7th again and how you can attend if you're either in the Sarasota area or you're planning to be there on Saturday, February 7th. I would encourage you, first of all, to go to the circusringoffame.org website. There's a lot of unbelievable information that is on that. Circus Ring of Fame, there's an F at the end of and an F at the beginning of fame, but it's a great website, and you should go there. Now the tickets, and this is a little bit more difficult to copy, so you'll have to go to the Ring of Fame website to see this, but it's ticketed through Eventbrite, and that really allows you to make sure that the people who get tickets actually show up, right, Bill?
Yes, it does. At the end of the day, we can track all the individuals that are coming into our tent. We do it for several reasons. I mean, just in fact, you need to know who your customers are. That's one big reason. The other thing is we found out 2 years ago, we got close to the show and realized, wow, our capacity is getting blown out. We're going to run out of tickets. And 3 days before the show, I was able to go immediately communicate to everybody who had purchased a ticket and said, "Hey, for those of you who have gone online and gotten tickets and you do not plan on attending or your plans have changed, please turn those tickets back in because others could use them. We're in need of the tickets." Well, 150 people turned their tickets back in, and other people were able to get in line. And it's very organized. Eventbrite is a great little piece of software. So you just go on Eventbrite, and in the search bar, type in Circus Ring of Fame. It'll take you right to the ticketing site.
Yeah, it's very
just
convenient.
Click, and if you got an iPhone or an Android device, you download your tickets onto your wallet. on your phone.
So yeah, it's just
Pretty easy.
eventbrite.com. You put in the Circus Ring of Fame and you can get your tickets. Bill, anytime we get together and talk about the circus and circus history is always a good day. But the information that you've provided us today, not only on the history of the Circus Ring of Fame, but also the inductees for 2025, it's going to be a great show. And I know I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we invite everybody out to join us. This is the one time of the year that our community, our global circus community, comes together to celebrate our art form. Okay? Every major art form, respected art form, and sport in the world has got some sort of an awards show. And by us doing this in the manner and the fashion and the class that we hopefully can aspire to do and keep it at that level, then we will lift the conversation about the circus. We will be more respected, and that is a good thing for all these wonderful artists and these executives and other people that make their living in this business, and for you folks in the history side of it that that record it for history. So we are living history. When you come and see this thing, when you participate in it, and you see these great artists and these individuals get this award, I'm going to tell you something. A lot of them cry. A lot of them cry.
They
It's an
do.
emotional thing. Okay? It means so much to them, and your support means so much to them. So I invite you, come out and see this. This is really a special thing.
Well, thank you, Bill, for everything that you've done for the Circus Ring of Fame. So again, I want to thank you for joining us for this episode of Circus History Live. We do this once a month. I hope you'll consider joining the Circus Historical Society. Go to circushistory.org, and we will see you down the road.
Let me just add my thanks as well. It was a great program, and we're looking forward to seeing you at the Ring of Fame ceremony on the 7th. And I'd like to also thank behind the scenes Anya Norris, who does our recording and puts our program up on the YouTube channel and does the marketing as well. And finally, I'd like to thank all of you for coming tonight. And we just released the announcement for our 2026 convention. It's going to be in Baraboo, Wisconsin, June 10 through 13. If you'd like to join us for the convention, we'd love to have you. Just go to our website, circushistory.org. So thank you again, everybody, and we'll see you down the road.
Take care. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Good night.